So in this video, we're going to be talking about a new company setup in QuickBooks Online, or I should say a new QuickBooks Online file. This can work for an existing company if it's been in existence for years. You can still set up using this workflow a new QuickBooks Online file. Keep in mind, this is outside of any sort of QuickBooks desktop conversion, anything like that. So kind of the workflow for this would be to, after you choose the subscription and get all signed up and everything, would be to go through the settings, which is up here. We'll go through that in this video. And then we're going to go through setting up the chart of accounts. And then after that, we're going to set up some products and services, some customers, as well as some vendors. And then probably the next steps after that, that would get you set up pretty well using those steps. And then the next step would be setting up a bank feed if you'd like to do that, which I'll go over that in another video. And then after that, the workflow of actually creating invoices and bills. And of course, I do that in another video as well. But once you're in here, you got the subscription, everything set up. Your first step will be to go into the settings and make sure all the settings are how you prefer them. So in order to get to there, you'd go in the top right corner here into this gear icon. And then the first great start would be in this company settings right here. And then here's where you can go through. You can start here in the company, the first step right here. Here's where you can put in the company name as well as any sort of logo if you want to do that. You can add a legal name if you like to do that. Maybe it's you do a DBA of the store and then the actual legal name is maybe you have an LLC. So that you can have the one for your invoices and stuff. And then if you do any sort of tax returns, things like that, then you can use your legal name here. Or it could be completely different as well. So we can save that. Contact info. This would be for your, your address, your company email, company telephone, website. Pretty straightforward here. The accounting method. So you can switch at any time with QuickBooks Online between accrual and cash. Probably most small businesses will be doing their tax returns with cash, the cash method. However, I would still pretty much always recommend setting this up with accrual when you're tracking QuickBooks Online. And the reason for that is you can still track what you owe, who owes you. And then whenever it comes tax time, you can either switch this back to cash temporarily, or you can still leave it at accrual, and then you can just run cash reports, balance sheet, profit and loss, and use that for your taxes. So I would pretty much usually always keep this at accrual. Here's where you can enter your EIN. It's important to do that here. You can choose your tax form. So whether you're a sole proprietor, partnership, LLC, here's where you can choose that. Let's say this is an LLC. If you have Plus, it'll give you the option here to track classes or locations. This is not available in Simple Start. Just so for the time being, just so you see, in case you do have them, we're going to turn those on. You can choose if it warns you if a class isn't selected. Let's do that. And then you can have it so it's either in each row of a transaction, different classes, or you can do it for the entire transaction. This is depend on if you have one invoice, for example, to where you want to track different classes, and of course you want that for each row. However, if that's never the case for you, you probably just want to have it on one transaction in order to save time. So you have to choose the class for every single line item. But we'll do line item for now. And then here's where you can choose the location label. So whether you're tracking different businesses, different departments, locations, stores, we're going to do store for today. We can save that. The next will be your customer label. This is for your sake. It just makes more sense so if you're a nonprofit, for example, you can choose customers to donors. And this is the terminology that'll be used whenever you're navigating QuickBooks Online from here on out of what it calls so whether it's a client, customer, donor, or a member. So for today, we're going to call this customers. And then here you can turn off the email subscriptions or anything with Intuit. So now we can go into the sales settings here. Right here is where you can customize the look and feel of your invoices. I'm going to skip this for now. I'll show you. We're going to do this after we go through this, but I think it's easier to just go through all the settings first, and then you can go through and create custom forms in a different screen. I think it just makes more sense to do it then. So we're going to skip this for now and come back to it. The sales form content. This is for your invoices if you do outstanding invoices. So you have preferred invoice terms. That's basically after you send the invoice when it will be considered due. So whether you give your customers 30 days, 15 days, or if it's due on receipt. We'll keep this at 30 days for now. The preferred delivery method, whether you want to print it later. So if you're actually physically printing and sending out your invoices, you can choose that to where you can create invoices throughout the week, throughout the month. And then whenever a certain day hits, you can go to a screens where you can see all the invoices that are marked as print later. You can print them all out at the same time, put them in envelopes and send them. Or probably most likely if you're emailing them, then you can choose to send later here, and then you can do the same thing if you want to send them all in an email all at the same time, or you can choose none. We'll hit that with send later for now. You can add a shipping field here to your invoices. So we'll choose that. Any custom fields, if you want to add any more descriptions or anything, track anything else within your invoices, you can do that here. If you want to have transaction numbers that are custom, so QuickBooks Online will just automatically assign custom numbers for your invoices. If you want to change that, so if it's important for you to change your customer invoice number to certain numbers, then you can check this here. Or if you'd like, you can turn it on, create an invoice, and just put 1,000, whatever number you would like, and then you can turn it off after that, and then it'll just be sequential after that. So if you put in 1,000 for one invoice and you turn this off, next time you create an invoice, it'll automatically make it 1,001, 1,002, and so forth. Service date. So if you want to clarify, so if you're sending an invoice for the 1st of November, if you want to clarify that that was for services rendered in October, then you can check this here. So you can choose that in the invoices. If you want to add any discounts or deposits on your invoices, you can click those here. We're not going to go into too much of this today. But if you're using a system to where you can send estimates and deposits outside of QuickBooks Online, and then you just want to track them in the invoice, and you can click this here. But if you want to actually track deposits within QuickBooks Online, I wouldn't check this here. There's another way to do it in another video to where you create a liability account and you actually track it correctly. Then of course, if you want any tips, you can add that here too. So we can save this. Now for the products and services, this is for if you want to show the product service column on sales form. Probably most likely this is going to be checked on. That's what it is by default. If you want to show a SKU column, that's for a unique sales number. If you have those, if you don't, you can turn this off. There's a beta of price rules currently. That's basically just if you want to create a sale in November for 15% off certain products, things like that, then you can do that, but we'll turn that off for now. Track the quantity, price, rate. So if you're tracking individual items for the quantity, you want to have this checked. If you don't, if you just have kind of bulk items and you just want a summary, you're not tracking per item, then you can turn that off. We're going to keep that on for today. And same thing with tracking quantities on hand. And this, again, this is only available in Plus if you're actually tracking inventory in your QuickBooks Online. So we can save that. If you want to add late fees for your overdue invoices, you can do that here. You can make it a flat fee or a percentage. And then it'll automatically create in your products and services list a late fee income account as well as in your chart of accounts. So if you want to add late fees, you can do that here. We'll turn that off for now though. If you are doing estimates within QuickBooks Online as well as creating partial invoices off that estimate, you can turn that on here. We're not going to get too much into that for this video, so we'll turn that off for now. You can have default messages for sales forms, but again, we're gonna go back to this whenever we're creating a custom invoice in a different location, so we're not going to worry too much about that in this screen. If you automatically want to create reminders for invoices, you can do that. Set it how many days before or after it was due, what do you want it to say, things like that. Email options, so if you want a short summary or full details in the email itself and PDF attached, but again, we can change this whenever we're creating the custom invoices in another screen, so I wouldn't worry too much about that today. And then if you have actual statements for customers, you can choose whether you want to show those statements on the bottom of the invoices or not. So this is for if you're doing purchase forms. Again, if you have Plus and you're tracking your bills and creating bills for vendors, these would be some options available to you. So this is if you want to, this is turned on by default, and if you are purchasing items from vendors and creating bills in QuickBooks Online, you probably just want to keep it on. So for management reporting purposes, if it's important to you to track items by customer, so if you're running profit and losses per customer, per client, then you'd want to have this definitely selected. If you're just buying bulk purchases, you're not actually tracking any of those items per customer, then it would be useless for you to turn this on. So that's where you can change that option there. And then if you want to create and make expenses and items billable, so this is if you're creating a bill for a vendor, buying a product, and then you know that you'll eventually be pushing that product onto an invoice. So if you're a landscaping company, for example, and you create a bill to a vendor to create or to buy like a bag of concrete, like a bag of mulch, for example, and then you know whenever you're creating that invoice for that customer, you're going to be adding that bag of mulch to bill them for it, to invoice them for it with a markup. You can turn that on here. So you can turn it on, and if you want, you can have a default markup of 20%, but of course you can change this invoice to invoice, item to item. But here's where you can turn that on if that's important to you. We're going to turn that off for now. So for purchase orders, this is, again, only available in QuickBooks Online Plus in advance. This is for if you're creating purchase orders and specifically to buy products, you can turn those on here. If you want custom transaction numbers, again, same as the invoices, you can turn that on here. So we can save that. Now, QuickBooks Online Payments, I'm not going to go over into this exact video of how to specifically set this up. Basically, you can you can click on Learn More here. You put in your EIN. They might ask for your social security number as well, I believe, and then your bank account, credit cards, things like that. It's great if you're invoicing clients or customers through QuickBooks Online, because then you can accept credit cards, bank account transfers, all within QuickBooks Online. Also, too, a new feature released late in 2020 is the QuickBooks Online Cash Account. So if you do decide that it's worth it to you to set up the cash account, then I would definitely turn on payments as well here. And what the cash account is basically a business bank account in QuickBooks Online. And the best part, I think, in my opinion, of it is that you get free instant deposits. So if you're sending clients invoices through emails, could be worth looking into. So you can set up the payments and then set up the QuickBooks cash account, and then you can send them an email, or if you have them set up with recurring billing, you can do it all within QuickBooks Online. They can put in their credit card or bank information through the invoice, and then automatically it'll be deposited into your cash account within 30 minutes for free, for no charge. QuickBooks Payments does do a percentage, but it's pretty great to get the option of having instant deposits of no charge and getting paid, and then having the money available to you to spend in 30 minutes. That's a really good thing for cash flow. So if you're interested in any of those two things, right here is where you would turn on those QuickBooks Payments option. So now we can go into advanced here. This is if you have a different fiscal year. So it's set up to where it's January to December. But some people, maybe for example, if you go through July to June for your fiscal year, you can change that here. If you want to close the books, and this is something too maybe your tax accountant can do as well, but let's say it's middle of January, you did your taxes, and so you want to close your books for December 31st of the prior year, and that'll just make it so no one will be accidentally making changes prior to that closing date, so that for the next year you don't want your books in QuickBooks Online to be different than what your tax returns reflect. And you can change it too, so you can make it so you can just it'll just say a warning if someone is making a change prior to the closing of the books, or you can make a password as well to really protect it. So that's where you can turn that on there. If you want account numbers in your chart of accounts, this is where you can turn it on here. We're going to turn that off for now, or keep it off. Automation stuff here. So some of the automation stuff in QuickBooks Online is great. It saves you a lot of manual entry, but at the same time, it's a little bit dangerous because you can easily miss things if it's automatically being done for you. So this pre-fill forms here, this one's usually pretty great. I usually have this one checked on. And so what this is if you enter a bill, let's say you enter a bill for your landlord, and then you enter it for rent for $1,000. And then you send it. And then the next time that you create a bill to your landlord, as soon as you choose the landlord's name, it'll auto-populate and it'll say rent for $1,000. So if it's pretty consistent with the expense account and everything that you're using, it could be great. Just save you a little bit of manual entry and everything. One thing to be careful of is that it will also populate the dollar amount. So it could be pretty easy if the dollar amounts fluctuate month to month. It could be pretty easy once you see that everything's filled out correctly to just kind of hit save and send and then not double check the dollar amount, things like that. So you want to be careful with that. Automatically applying credits in unbilled activity, as well as bill payments. I usually, for the most part, leave these turned off because it'll still send you reminders. So if you have unbilled activity and then you create an invoice for that customer or client, it'll send a little screen saying, hey, do you want to add this unbilled activity to it? And then you can hit add right there. I don't usually like it having turned on to be automatically done because then things can get messy, and especially too if you don't want to add that unbilled activity for that particular invoice. So I usually like to keep these turned off, but if it's something that you're doing all the time and it's usually pretty automatic, then you can turn these on just to save you a little bit of time. We're not going to get too much into the projects today, but if you are doing project tracking, this is where you would turn it on here. Same with time tracking if you have QuickBooks Online Plus or Advanced. The currency, if you're doing multi-currency, this is where you turn it on here. I think the main thing to know about this is that once you do turn it on, you can't turn it back off. So if you want to make it so you're tracking multi-currency, make sure before you turn this on, this is absolutely something that you want to have turned on for the long run. And then here's pretty straightforward date formats. Usually probably won't be making too many changes to this, but if you want to change the date format, number format, anything like that, if you want to choose to sign out for a certain amount of inactivity, you can do that here as well. So that about does it for the settings. Once you have those, and it's a great start for setting up your new QuickBooks Online file. So the next thing that we're going to go, when I was talking about creating those custom invoices, we're going to do that now. So if you go into the gear icon here under these lists, we can go into, over here in the settings. I think you can get to it in lists as well, but we're going to do custom form styles here. And just to humor myself, I'm going to go into all lists here. Yeah, custom form styles. So you can either go into all lists and then custom form styles, or you can go into the gear icon under company settings and hit custom form styles. And this is where you create basically custom how your invoice looks. So this is definitely obviously important if you're sending invoices in QuickBooks Online. So we can hit new style here. Also works for estimates and sales receipts. Let's do new invoice. And then once you name the template for the invoice, you can hit this change up the template here, and then you can kind of choose between a few templates that they have. So let's say that we like this modern one here. And then we can do make logo edits if you want to. So this is the logo that was brought in whenever we were originally doing the in the company settings, we updated the logo. But if you want to have a different logo than that one, you can change it here, or you can completely hide the logo. You can change the size of it, and also if you want it in the center to the left, you can change that here. Want to change some color, so let's say we want to make this kind of a green. We can do that here. If you have a custom code for your logo, business colors, anything like that, you can put the code in here. If you want to do some font changes, make this font bigger, smaller, we can do that. And then the page margins, I'm not going to worry too much about that. And if you go over here to content, so you can click kind of these pencils here, kind of the top, middle, and bottom sections, and you can choose what your invoice actually says and doesn't say. So we'll start with the top here. So you can choose if it has your business name. You can also change the name if you want. So let's say your legal name is set up in QuickBooks as LLC, but you don't want it to say LLC on your invoices, and you can change that here. If you want to add your phone number, add a different phone number, or take off the phone number, you can do that here. Same with the email. You can add an address. So this is important if a lot of your clients are sending physical checks to you, then you definitely want to have that address in there. If you want to do a website as well, you can just easily put that in there. So the form name right here where it says invoice, if you want to change that to something else, if you want to make it say bill, the customer bill, something like that, you can change that here, or you can turn it off. The form numbers, so again, we go back to those custom numbers we were talking about, and if you want those to show up on the invoice itself or not show up, you can choose that here. Same with the custom emails or custom numbers. So to display, If you wanted to show shipping terms due date, which is right here. So if you are shipping, then you can, show obviously it's shipped via FedEx, ship date. If you're not billing for any shipping, then of course you don't want any of that on there. So then it'll just say, just so you kind of see what, all the changes we're making here. So this is where the bill number would be if you want that. The date of the service, the date due, the total amount due, as well as the term. So again, that's if you send it today, if it's actually due in 30 days, that's where that shows up here. And then if you want any sort of custom fields here, you can add those right here. So once we have that figured out, then we can go to the bottom here. So this is kind of a summary. So again, if you're tracking statements per customer, so if they have a few open invoices, then you can show on the invoice kind of their summary, what they owe before, the new charges, and the total amount due. And here you can get into details like the WIS and everything. So you can change so if you want the description above the product and service, you can do that. You can turn off the date. If you have the quantity again of different products, you can turn that on here. And also right here. So we can't do anything with these right now because we had these turned off whenever we were going through the settings originally. When they asked if we wanted to track quantity or rate or SKUs. We turned that off and no. So we'll have to turn those back on before we can add them into the invoices. And so now we can go to the bottom here. This is where we can just show, so if we have any discounts for deposits, we can add those here. Let's see. So you can add a custom message here that shows up on the bottom. It's pretty small, so you want to make it bigger, you can do that. And then any footer text as well, anything you want to add here, you can change that here. And then the emails. So this is kind of the template of what it would look like whenever they receive an email if you are sending emails, email invoices. So you can either make it so it's just summarized. So if you do summarize, they'll get the email and it'll say bill number here if you chose that, and it'll say, dear, the customer name, here's your invoice, and you can change all this right here. Anything you want to change here, you can change to what it actually says in the email. But it'll just say your greeting that you choose here, and then it'll say due on a certain date for this amount. Here it says print or save. If you signed up for QuickBooks payments, like I was talking about before, then it'll actually say pay now, and they can just click this link and easily put in their credit card or bank transfer, and it'll automatically pay it. If you do choose full statement here or full details, then it'll have the summary just like we talked about, and then also in the email on the bottom, it'll have the bill to terms, the actual items, things like that. But if you do summarize, you can also choose it to where the PDF is attached. So it'll just be a quick little summary of what's owed, and then it'll be a PDF attachment of the full invoice to where it goes through the actual items and rates, things like that. And then again, too, you can choose the actual messaging here. You can use the full name, just the first name, things like that. And then you can set it to what it says in reminder email. So if you choose yes to send reminder emails, again, when we were doing the original settings, so if 3 days after the invoice is overdue, if you want to send them a reminder, you can choose what's actually said in the reminder email right here. So that looks great. So we can hit done. And just really quickly, I'll show you what that actually was and where you can see that. So here's where you can see the custom form styles. Let's say we're creating an invoice. So you create the invoice regularly, all the information that's needed or not needed. And then what you do is you hit this customize right here, and then it has different templates. And then this is the one we just created. Use this template invoice. You can just choose that. And then all the settings that we just had with the emails and everything, it's what will be used whenever we send this particular invoice. So just so you have an idea of what we just did and why we did it. We can exit out of that. So it's a great starting point. We got all the settings set up, the invoices, everything like that. So the next thing will be the chart of accounts. So to get to your chart of accounts, you hit this gear icon and then go into chart of accounts under settings. And again, that's also in this list. So if you go to all lists, it's also right here. So great thing about QuickBooks Online is there's usually multiple ways to get to the same location. And so here we're looking at the chart of accounts. I'm not going to get too much into this video of the actual nitty-gritty of the accounting of all this stuff, of the balance sheet accounts, what they are, assets, current assets versus fixed or long-term assets, things like that. There's plenty of great resources out there if you really need help with that. Plenty of books, YouTube videos. You can get in touch with me as well. I can walk you through it. But I'm more going to talk about the actual logistics of QuickBooks Online, of setting up new chart of accounts. But just as a really quick overview, chart of accounts is basically the buckets of where your stuff is going. So if you create an expense, what bucket is that expense going into? Same with sales, things like that. So that's what the chart of accounts is. If you do already have a chart of accounts from another program you're using, you can put it all into Excel and exporting it, and then you can import it, hitting this down arrow right here, and import it into QuickBooks Online. But if you're not importing, then I'll show you how to add new items into your chart of accounts. And even if you are importing, usually you're kind of adding stuff as you go into the chart of accounts. So it's pretty important to know how to do this. Just a brief kind of, so it's sorted here by type. So first we have the bank, and then we usually have the balance sheet accounts first. So we have the current assets, credit cards, liabilities, and equity accounts. And then we get down here, starting with income, and this is your P&L accounts. So income, cost of goods sold, and expenses, and then other income. So that's kind of the workflow of what you're looking at here with the chart of accounts. So we'll go through first with the balance sheet accounts and how to set them up. So in another video, I talk about setting up the actual bank accounts. So we'll check out that one if you're setting up a bank account, and then how to set up the bank feed if you want to do that. But so let's go into, for example, let's do some fixed assets. So let's say we have a truck that we want to put in here as a fixed asset. So if you hit new right here, and the main thing that you want to choose, let's make sure that it's correct, would be the account type right here. Usually you don't have to worry too much about the detail type. It doesn't really mean too much when you're actual books, but so under account type, and again, it kind of goes through the same workflow. So you have your balance sheet accounts first, assets, liabilities, credit cards, equity, and then your P&L, income, cost of goods sold, and expenses. So it's the same workflow as before. So right now we're going to start with some fixed assets. So let's say this is a vehicle, but you can put it, just so you have an idea, you can put it for your buildings, computers, furniture, things like that. But let's say vehicles, and let's see, we have a Ford F-150. You put a description here if you'd like. And then what we can do, so let's say we're tracking depreciation of this asset. And of course, you want to talk with your tax accountant to see kind of how this workflow is all working, but just so you know how to set it up. So let's check this right here. And let's say the original cost was $30,000 as of the beginning of the end of last year. And let's say so far, it's been depreciated for an amount of $10,000 again at the end of last year. So we can save and close that, and I'll show you what that looks like here. So here now we see in the fixed assets, it has the F-150 for its net current value, which is the $20,000, and the reason for that is because we have the original cost of $30,000, and then it automatically created a depreciation account as well, which is at negative $10,000. And so that's kind of how that workflow and everything looks. So that's how you would set up fixed assets. Same for if you're doing, again, buildings, computers, anything like that. It's all the same kind of workflow. And then, credit cards, we'll talk about that again in the other video, but let's go over some liabilities, some long-term liabilities. So let's say, for example, this truck, we took out a loan originally to pay for the truck. So we want to put in the chart of account for that loan. So we go to new, say it's a long-term liability because it's owed for more than 1 year. And we can just choose note payable here. Again, we don't have to worry usually too much about the detail type. Ford car loan. You put loan for Ford F-150. And then if you're choosing that we already have the loan that's been tracked before, you can start tracking it. Again, let's do 12/31/2019. And the account balance, let's say that we owed $10,000 more for that loan. So we can save and close that. And then now we'll see here in the long-term liabilities, we have a payable Ford car loan of $10,000. Now let's look really quickly. We'll look at a balance sheet for last year so you kind of see how that looks in your actual financial reports. So let's run it for last year. So the bank accounts you set up will be right here. Same with, so now we have the fixed assets right here. So we have the Ford F-150 with $10,000 of depreciation, original cost of $30,000. So we have the total fixed asset of $20,000. And then our liabilities right here, we have credit cards. And then the long-term liabilities, this is where we have that Ford car loan of $10,000. So now let's go back into the chart of accounts. Now, I'm not going to get too much into the equity accounts in this video, but you definitely want to make sure. So if you have partnerships, things like that, you'll want to set up some equity accounts for that. Or if it's just you, then you can do some sort of owner's pay, owner's investment, things like that. And this is a good time here. We can talk about some sub accounts. So let's say, for example, let's create some equity accounts. Actually, we'll get into it a little bit. So let's say this is a partnership. We'll do partners equity, do partner A equity. And then rather than saving and close it, we're going to hit save and new here because we're going to create a few accounts here. So let's do save and new. And then partners equity, let's say partner contributions. So we'll name this partner A contributions. So now here's where you hit this save or is a sub account. I really like using these sub accounts, and I'll show you a lot more of this whenever we do the P&L accounts, the income and expenses. But so let's say, so we want to make this a sub account for that partner A equity. So let's save and new that. Now distributions. Under that same one. And now we're going to create another parent account. So we're going to go back to partners equity. Partner B equity. And then contributions. And again, we're going to make that a sub account for partner B equity. And then distributions, sub account, again, partner B equity. So now we'll see in our chart of accounts here, when we go into the equity, it makes this a lot cleaner. So you have the overall account of partner A equity with the contributions and distributions below it. Right here is sub accounts. And then we have partner B equity with partner B contributions and distributions. So you can do that as many partners as you have. Just keeps it really clean, keeps everything kind of together, partner to partner. So next we have income accounts. So now we're getting into the P&L. So QuickBooks starts you out with these kind of general income accounts. You can just use these if these work for you. You can make some of them inactive if you're not using them, but a lot of them you don't really have an option. Like for shipping income, for example, I don't think we have an option to. Oh, we can inactivate that. Okay, but a few of them you can, a few of them you can't. But you can edit these and change these to say what you want, so it makes sense to you. This is most important, for when you're checking your P&L. This is where you can choose how detailed or general you want to be. So generally, you probably want to be as detailed as possible to where it's going to benefit you in terms of looking at the reports, but without being too detailed. If all you really want to know is just your overall sales, then you can just keep it as overall sales. But so what we're going to do, we're going to set up a sales account and then a few sub accounts with that. Some bookkeepers, accountants, business owners, they like to keep everything separate. So they'll create a merchandise sales account, service sales account, and they'll keep everything separate. I like using the partner I'm sorry, the sub account feature. I think it just looks cleaner. So I'll show you how to do that here. So right here we have an overall sales income account. Now what we're going to do is we're going to create a few sub accounts off of that. So we can go down to income here. Again, doesn't really matter here. You can make a service product. Don't worry too much about that. But let's say for example, let's say we sell client work as well as a few products. You kind of get an overall view of everything. So let's say we're a small fly fishing operation. So let's say that we take people on guides of fly fishing trips. So we can create a income account for the guide service sales, and then we can create it as a sub account of that parent sales account here. Let's do save and new. Now let's say we also sell some fly rods. So let's make it product. Let's call this fly rod sales. Again, sub account to that parent sales account. And then let's do another one. Let's call this, let's say that we sell kind of smaller stuff, but we don't track the inventory on it. So let's say we sell individual flies, things like that. So we can call this accessories sale. So we have that. And let's create that shipping income again. Say we're going to be shipping some fly rods to some people. And again, we'll put this under and you can do this as detailed as you want. So let's say rather than just having one parent sales account, maybe you can do product sales, and then you can put the fly rod sales and the accessories income under there. And then you can do miscellaneous sales, which you can put the shipping under there. And then you can do maybe guide or service sales, and you can put guide sales, things like that under there. So you can create as many of these parent and sub accounts as you want, whatever makes sense for you to track on your P&L. We're just going to keep this in the sales. And let's go ahead and save and close that. Now we'll see here, and I'll show you in a bit of what this will actually look like in your P&L. But so now we just have a parent account of just sales overall, and then we break it down by accessories, fly rod sales, guide service sales, as well as shipping income. Then we go a little bit further down, and then we have here the cost of goods sold. Please don't confuse this with inventory. So you should have, if you are doing inventory, then you'll have the inventory asset here as your fixed asset. So let's actually make this. Let's say we only have fly rods. You want to keep this as a general inventory account if you're tracking a lot of inventory, but let's just say we're just keeping track of fly rods. So we'll save and close that. And what I mean by that is that you don't want to, let's say you purchase a fly rod, just be sure that you're not putting it under cost of goods sold. I see that being done every now and then, because cost of goods sold isn't the expense of the stuff that you buy that you're gonna sell. It's the account. It's what's taken off of your sales whenever you actually make the sale. I know I'm not explaining that very well, but if you need more explanation of this, let me know and I can get further into it. Or again, there's plenty of great resources out there where it kind of explains the difference in the workflow between inventory and cost of goods sold. But just so you're aware, for your cost of goods sold, this is where you'd set it up here. You can edit it to make sense for you. So whether you're selling a service or cost of labor, if you're doing, whether you're selling a product, you can do the product here. Whether you're doing a service and you're selling it as cost of labor, or maybe you're selling a software, you can kind of set it up as a product as well, and you can make it so it's software. This, of course, is going to differ from business to business, but right here is where you'd set up that cost of goods sold. And then we get into the expenses. So if you don't really know, if it's relatively new business and you're tracking QuickBooks Online, you don't really know the expenses. So a good starting point are these kind of general expenses that QuickBooks Online has for you. Or let's say, for example, you're a sole proprietor and you do a Schedule C or whatever your tax form is. You can just Google the tax form. So it's just Google Schedule C and look at the images. And then you'll see the expenses that will be asked for whenever you do your taxes. That could also be a very good starting point. So you're not kind of all over the place. So you know, okay, they're going to ask me for vehicle, insurance expenses, rent expense. And then you can kind of start, it'd be a good starting point for you. So I would say definitely to whatever tax form you're using, you at least want to have a parent account set up for each of those lines. And then you can break it down as far as you would like. That makes sense to you, again, for when you're tracking in your P&L of how detailed you want to get. So let's say, for example, your Schedule C, and you know that they're going to ask you for vehicle expenses. So you can make sure that you have an expense account set up for vehicle. Let's see if we have one yet. We don't. Okay, so we have the car and truck here. And let's edit this. Let's say we just have the truck, so it doesn't. So let's just say we'll change this to vehicle expenses. And that's again, so this is under expenses and then auto. Let's save and close that. So if all you care about when you're looking at your P&L is how much your overall vehicle expenses are, then you can just stop right here. You'll be able to track your vehicle expenses. You can put your gas in here, your repairs, your parking bills, everything like that, parking tolls, everything you can just put in the vehicle expenses and you'll be good at tax time. But let's say for your management reporting purposes, you want to know that breakdown. You want to know how much is gas. You want to know how much is for repairs. You want to know how much is for general maintenance. So what you can do is you can go back up to new and then expenses. We can keep this in auto. And then we can just make fuel a sub account for vehicle. And save and new. And then we can make another one for repairs. Again, check sub account, vehicle expenses, save and new. Let's say maintenance. So you want to just track for like oil changes, things like that. It's maybe not considered a repair. Do that. Parking. Whenever we look into our chart of accounts again, now we'll see these vehicle expenses as a parent account, and then we'll see fuel, maintenance, parking, repairs. So whenever you're doing your monthly P&Ls and reviewing everything, you'll have a breakdown or a year P&L quarter. You'll know exactly how much is fuel, maintenance, parking, and repairs. But whenever it comes to tax time and all they want to know is what your vehicle expenses were, it'll show up here in this parent account, and then you know the exact number. And I'll show you really quickly. So let's look at the P&L. Just so you have an idea of what that looks like on your P&L when you're doing those sub-accounts and everything. And I think we might have to do some transactions. Now you get the idea here. So before I set up, same as the vehicle what I showed you, I set up before utilities one. So we have a utilities account here, the parent account, and then we have it broken down between, electric, gas, internet, water. It'll be the same thing when you're looking at your P&L for the vehicle expenses, and then it'll show here the total utilities. So you can either keep it at just utilities and it'll say $750 here, or if you want to break it down again, if that's helpful for you, that's where you would do that, is in your chart of accounts. So we're going to set up some products and services. And then once we do that, we'll just do some really quick sales, and then you'll see in the P&L of what that looks like whenever we broke it down between, guide sales, merchandise sales, things like that. So yeah, the next step after the chart of accounts would be setting up those products and services. So even if you're not selling any products, you're not tracking any inventory, you still want to set up whatever it is you're selling, whether it's just a consulting service. And you can do that here in the gear icon. You'll see under all lists, you'll see products and services. You can click there. Or if you just get used to going to all lists, you'll see that right here, products and services. So I already have some set up, and also QuickBooks does too by default. So you have to keep sales. I think they have a shipping one in here usually too. So those are kind of just by default. But so let's go ahead and add some new ones though. Let's say that you don't want to just have a sales account. You want to break it down a little bit more. So what we do right here is we hit new. And again, too, I want to make note, if you do have some of these, you can import them as well right here. But let's say we're going to track an inventory. So let's say fly rod, sage, and the sage. So you can put the name of the actual inventory here, and then the SKU, you can just put like serial number, whatever it is here. If you're tracking classes, we can assign a class here. We're not going to worry about that now. Initial quantity on hand, again, this is for if you're actually tracking quantities and doing purchase orders in QuickBooks Online. So let's say we have one as of this month, and the reorder point is basically like your min-max. So if you want, so it'll just prompt you and say, hey, you should order some more of these. So if you want to keep that, let's say you don't want to go less than 5 of having on hand, then you can put that here. Here's where you choose that inventory asset account. So again, you just have the overall inventory account. If that works for you, you can do that. Or if you want to break it down a little bit, so here we created that fly rod inventory account. So this is where you would choose that. And all of these options, the income account, inventory asset account, what these are referring to are the chart of account accounts that we just set up. So it's very important to understand that relationship of the products and services are different than the chart of accounts, but they link to them. It's very important to understand, especially in the initial setup of your company in QuickBooks Online. So then we can do a description. This is what will show up on the sales forms if you want to do that. If you want to have a default sales rate, you can put that here. Very important here is the income account. So you can hit this down arrow here. And again, this will be whenever you make a sale of this product, what is it going to actually reflect on your P&L? And again, that's referring to the chart of accounts, sales accounts that we just set up. So we see here we have sales and we have accessory, fly rod sales, etc. And those are the products that we just set up in our chart of accounts. So so here's where we can choose the fly rod sales. And we're not going to worry too much about this, but it's for purchasing information. If you have like a default cost, usually the expense account, that's for this cost of goods sold account that we created. Or if you just want to keep it as the default cost of goods sold, you can just keep it right there. So we're going to save and close that. Now I already set one up for guide service sales, but let's go ahead and edit it. But you would just hit new. So let's say we're doing, so this one we're not tracking as a product. And if you hit new here, you'll see inventory. That's if you have plus or advanced. If you have simple start, you'll just see service or non-inventory. So for this one, I chose service. And I'll explain the other two here in a second. But the bundle is basically just a collection of all these non-inventories. So if like those accessories we talked about before, that'd be non-inventory. And then service is straightforward. So let's go and edit the guide service. So guide service sales, again, if you want to add a SKU, you can do that here in the class. Now this is very important here. So we don't want to keep this just in the sales income account. So again, those chart of account sales that we just set up, I know I keep repeating this, but it's very important. Right, this income account right here is very important. So we want to track the actual product and service of a guide service sales as guide service sales income account, so that whenever we sell on an invoice guide service sales, it tracks as guide service sales on our P&L. If we just keep it in sales, then it'll just go to the parent sales account, and then our kind of parent accounts and everything will be off. So we're not going to purchase this from a vendor because it's a service. We can save and close that. Now let's create another one for those accessories we talked about, to where it's just kind of like the little flies and things like that. So we can hit new, and then we can make this a non-inventory because it's not technically considered a service, and it's not inventory because we're not tracking quantities of each individual fly in QuickBooks Online. And this is too if you're selling like nuts and bolts, or maybe you're doing computers and you have cables and things like that, to where you're selling it. It's a physical product, but it's little tiny stuff that you're not tracking in QuickBooks Online. This is where you would choose non-inventory here. So let's say flies and accessories will be the name of that product and service. Again, you can choose a class if you want. Again, very important, income account. So right here, remember before in a chart of accounts, we set up an accessories income account. So we can choose that here, save and close. So now where these show up Excuse me, I'm just drinking some coffee here. But so where these show up, these products and services, is whenever you're going to create an invoice or a sales receipt. We'll kind of walk through that now. This product and service right here, we're down over that. These are the products and service that we just put into. So we see here we see the fly rod, the flies and accessories, the guide service sales. Those are the products and services we just added, and this is where you can choose them here. Is whenever you're creating the invoice. Let's create a bulk one. We're gonna so that you can see how it looks on the P&L. So let's say we sold a fly rod for $300. Let's say we did a guide for $200. And then we sold them some flies for $20. Let's save and close that. And here it's giving you a little, so if you are tracking class, this is where in the settings in the beginning, if you remember, where we chose if it gives us a warning, if it doesn't have classes, and we check that as yes, this is where that warning shows up right here. So we can hit yes here. Now here it's showing out of stock because we sold that fly rod. But the main thing I wanted to show you here, so now we go into our reports. And we're going to look at the P&L just so you see kind of the relationship of everything. So let's say right here. So right here we have just a parent sales account broken down, and here it has total sales of $520, and it's broken down here. So you see the accessories, the fly rod, and the guide service. That was off of that invoice that we just created. Now there's one other account I would like to show you, just so you know this is an option. So you can make your decision whenever you're creating your chart of accounts, how much you want to break it down, as well as how much you want to break down your products and services. So let's say, for example, you just want to keep it as total sales. When you're looking at your profit and loss, you don't care about in your profit and loss it broken down like this. You can still run a report that breaks it down by product and service. So if you do product and service, let's say sales by product service detail, then you'll still be able to see for your total sales broken down by your products and services, by flies and accessories, fly rods, and guide service sales. So just so you have an idea that there's kind of different options for you here, and then you can decide from there, knowing those options, of how you want to break it down, how much you want to break it down or not break it down when it comes to your chart of accounts, as well as your products and services. So now we're really rolling here. We've got the chart of accounts set up, products and services. The final step in this part of setting it up would be just setting up your vendors as well as your customers, whether they're customers, clients, whatever they are. So how you do that. So over here in the left-hand column here, you'll see the sales here. And then for us, it says customers. But again, if it's clients for you, it'll say clients here. Whatever you chose in the beginning, whenever we were doing the settings, this is how it'll show up here. Let's click on customers here. And then we're going to, again, if you have a list in Excel or something of past customers, you can hit this down over here and then import all them right here. Let's say we're just adding a few here. You can put in, if they're an individual person, you can put in their name here. You can put their company name, first name, last name for an individual, and then you can choose here. This is how it actually is displayed. So you can hit the down over here. So it'll either give you the options for their name or their company. So whatever makes more sense here. We'll keep it at the name. You can choose how it's printed on the checks. If you're writing them checks, it's not going to matter too much for customers, but if this is for if you're setting up a vendor, if you're in it also too, if you're printing checks within QuickBooks Online, how it shows up. You want to put their email in here in order to send them invoices. If you're doing that through email, put their phone number and website. You can do billing addresses and stuff here. You can put in notes if you want to keep track of stuff. Payment and billings. This is where you can send. So if you want to keep their credit card or bank payment in QuickBooks Online, this is again, if you set up QuickBooks Payments, this is where you can do that here. So if you want to set up automatic billing, this is where you would do that here. You would add new, and then you would put in their bank account or credit card. And then you can set it up to where you can automatically bill them. And I'll go over that in different videos as well. If you have some sort of estimate agreed upon, proposal, anything like that, you can add that as an attachment here. Just keep everything all in one place. And then you just add some additional info here. So we'll go ahead and save that. So I'm not seeing my options here. I'm gonna have to look into this because I am using a QuickBooks accountant account for this. So maybe it doesn't give me the option here. But usually you have the option whenever you're creating a new customer there's a checkbox right here to where you can put an opening balance. And that's basically the opening balance that they owe you. So that's one way to do it. Or if the customer is already created, then you can hit the down arrow here. And then again, usually you can put in an open balance. So there's a few ways to do it. You can either create the customer, and let's say they just owe you one outstanding invoice. You can just create the invoice by clicking this, and you can just put in the invoice manually. Or let's say, for example, they owe you 10 invoices, and then you don't want to put in each individual invoice. You can just create the customer. Let's say they owe you, of all the invoices, they owe you $10,000. Then you can just hit the down arrow, hit create an opening balance, and then you can put they owe me $10,000 as of December 31, 2019. Whenever you want to begin tracking that. So those are kind of two options. So you can put in your customers as well as track any outstanding invoices. If you're in a retail store environment, it's going to depend on if you're using outside credit card processing, things like that. But usually if you're in that environment, maybe you just want to create like a daily sales account. Here's where you can do that here. Okay, so now let's go into our vendors. Vendors here, or expenses here, and then vendors. Same process. Hit new vendor here. You can import the vendors. You have a list of vendors already. Same screen here. You see the display name, company. This is more important for if you're sending them checks. You can send their set up their address as well. Again, if you're giving them checks, this would be really important to keep track of. Email, and again here, this is where if they have an opening balance, you can choose that here. So again, if you have options, you can either just create the vendor, and then if you have one outstanding bill with them, then you can go to new here and then create a new bill to track that. Or let's say you have 10 open bills with this vendor and you don't want to put all those individual bills in. You can create the vendor and then put in the opening balance of whatever it is as of that date. And let's actually do that here really quickly just so you have an idea. $10,000, 1013. Save that. So now we'll see when we look at that vendor, we'll see an open balance of $10,000. And then so whenever we make payments to them, let's say we make 3 payments to them, we can just click this make payment here, and then we can just make payments based off of that full $10,000 owed. It won't actually have each individual outstanding bill in here, but it will track the correct accounts payable, which is the full open balance of $10,000. So you have a few options there. That's probably a good place to stop for this video. Once you have all this set up, you're in a really good spot to can start using QuickBooks Online effectively. So yeah, again, the kind of next steps in the workflow would be setting up that the bank feed, and I'll do that in another video, and then kind of going through and doing your actual workflow, creating invoices and bills and things like that. But once you have the chart of accounts correct, and then as well as your products and services, customers and vendors, and it really sets you up for success when you actually start working in QuickBooks Online. So it's very vital that all this stuff is set up correctly from the beginning, because if you do, you're set up great. If not, then it just becomes a little bit more work once you start like working in here and then making corrections after that.